I'm so grateful that you have decided to join me again today, or if this is your first time here, welcome. I think you're going to enjoy our show today. I always have wonderful guests, and I'm really, really happy to bring you my, I guess, colleague, cohort, whatever you want to call. We are in this Get Griefy small business collective together, and both on a mission to do some really beautiful healing grief work with people. And Sundari Malcolm is just doing so many great things. When I saw what she does, I was like, I need her on this show. So Sundari is a birth, grief, and death doula specializing in yoga, breathwork, and meditation. She's a teacher on a mission to equip people with the tools they need to manage life's greatest transitions. In 2007, at 27 years old, and after 7 years of being her caregiver, Sundari lost her mother to breast cancer. 4 years later, her father died from the complications of brain cancer. Those experiences redirected her life and led her to the beautiful path she travels today. A contributor to help texts, which I didn't even know what that was. I looked it up, and that is so super cool. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. And a grief expert with the For Grief Speakers Bureau. She is the author of the book Grief Gems and the founder of a Healing Doula Academy. So Sundari, you do so many amazing things. Welcome to the show. We're happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to everyone who's listening or watching. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, awesome. So why don't you tell us, I gave everybody a little brief overview of what you do, this whole birth, grief, and death doula. I mean, and you cover it, from start to finish, you're there to help. So tell us what you do a little bit more exactly, and maybe why you're passionate about it.
Yeah, I think it's important probably to go back and figure out, how I landed in this space in general. And so I always like to mention, I did not start out in this. If you want to talk about how grief can be transformational, I like to look at my own path. In that, so I was raised between New York City and a yoga ashram. So I was raised between New York and Yogaville, which is a spiritual community in Virginia. My name Sundari was given to me by the renowned teacher Swami Satchidananda. A lot of people knew him as the Woodstock guru because he spoke at Woodstock, but created an incredible community in Connecticut and then Virginia. And so my mother, though she was a school teacher before I was born, had been studying to be a Swami. And that is a spiritual teacher, a monk of sorts. And it was the death of her own mother when she was 27 that brought her back to New York, and why she wound up giving up that path. My grandmother died at 55 when my mother was 27. It's like an interesting connection of I was also 27 and my mother was 55. And while she became a school teacher in New York and my father taught computers to special needs students, they were both yogis and meditation students. And at that time, this was in the 80s. This was before it was mainstream and quote unquote cool to be into holistic wellness, right? I was just like the weird kid that chanted and did yoga and went to yoga summer camp. And so spirituality, all of these practices were things that I did really because my parents, it was just part of the everyday, right? You're not really choosing it, you're doing it because it's part of what your family dynamic is. And then once I got to high school and in my 20s, you don't really want to be too different. And so I was living a very teenage college life. And post-college, I was working in public relations. I actually used to plan events for the NFL and for record labels, and I planned parties basically for a living. And then my mother was diagnosed for the second time with breast cancer. And I came back home and spent some of that time kind of straddling two lives because I was in my 20s and young and newly out of college and wanted to be the hot shot New York City PR girl, right? This is the days of Sex in the City at their highlights. And recognized really soon after she passed, or recognized really soon while being a caregiver, that I could not straddle both. And so I had to leave that job and I had to go full-time into being my mother's caregiver. And after she passed, I, in truth, spent the first year not doing a whole lot. I watched the Food Network and laid on the couch and cried and drank wine. And then I made the decision that I kind of felt like I was drowning and I needed to pull myself out of my grief fog, which I think a lot of people who are listening, who are grievers, understand what that feels like, to be wrapped in that fog. And I went on a yoga retreat with an organization that I really trusted that had been connected to the ashram. And in my practice, as difficult as it was to become still, to breathe, to close my eyes, to slow down, to connect with myself, because it was extremely painful in the beginning, I also recognized how much more grounded and tethered I felt in my loss when I started using these practices that I had been raised with, but had never thought to apply to grief and death and loss. And it was after that training, after that retreat, that I decided, oh, I was absolutely going to take a teacher training, and that I was going to learn how to teach yoga and teach meditation. And that really started that path. And that was in 2008. And since then, now it's been 17 years of being a birth, grief, and death doula. I really started in just primarily from the body perspective. And so it was teaching yoga to caregivers and grievers and cancer patients and people with terminal illnesses. And that led into people asking to spend more time with me, which is what grew into the grief doula work. The birth doula work was really about, I was teaching prenatal yoga. And again, students started asking for me to be their doula. And after years and years of trainings, what I have realized about this path was that I was really invested because of my time as being a caregiver, because of what I watched with both of my parents in those last days, because of the students that came to me later, is that I wanted to be part of assisting people in assisting people in them receiving what they deserve, whether they are bringing life into this world or transitioning from it. And while these are two of the biggest things that we will go through in our life, right? If you choose to give birth, we all die, we will all grieve, was how little support was available for all of this, how little thought was offered on a large scale to, you did not have to deal with what was offered to you. You could, in fact, decide how you wanted to birth, die, and grieve. And so often because of the mainstream conversation, we believe that you have to choose what has been told to you, and that you have to settle for what is being offered to you, and that you have no control over either of those. And all of that would be a lie. You do have control. You can design it. You can choose how you want to experience it. And for me, that became it. I think bigger than that also became knowing that you were empowering people, right? Empowering people with being able to make decisions that served them best. Because in all honesty, most of our life is spent almost placating other people, right? Whether those are friends, family, coworkers, we often make decisions based upon how we think it will land with other people. Yeah. And when you are giving birth or dying or grieving, those should be the 3 times where your bandwidth to other people's opinion should be at a 0. And your intention behind you deserving the very best should be at 100. And to watch people shift and to watch people give themselves permission to experience all that can come with these transitions has been really beautiful. And so I've never left. I think we sometimes overestimate or underestimate how powerful those transitions are. It's almost as though they have been so written into the fabric of society that we give them no credence. You're just going to show up and that's going to happen, and then you're just going to move past it. When it's like, no, those are actually like choice points and transition points and deserve to be handled with care. So that's how I wound up here and why I've stayed here.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. You are a very special person. I can just tell. You just radiate. Like if you're not watching, if you're listening, go check out the YouTube because Sundari just has a very beautiful aura and a very beautiful way about her. So thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your soul, your heart, your spirit, your essence, all of that with us. It's awesome. You're great. So the decision part is what stuck out and the empowering people. How do you find people to work with in terms of like when they come to you, do they say, I feel like I'm pressured by my mother to do it the way she did it? Or, because you're saying like you just do what's been done, what society dictates, basically, and we don't question. So how do you empower, how do you guide people toward making the decisions that are best for them, really without putting your own judgment or value or anything? Because that's hard, I think, as somebody who's coaching, guiding, leading others to say like, well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think this is what has worked really well for me on my own career path is that who I am in conversation in life is exactly who I am in work. There's no difference, right? And so if you follow me on social media, if you read any of my writing, if you've ever attended a workshop with me, you are very aware of who I am and how I interact and what my belief system is when it comes to the inherent gifts we have to care for ourselves. And because of that, I don't find that I have to convince people of what an interaction with me will be like or what you're going to receive in engaging with me, right? People understand that in being with me, we're going to do spiritual work. We're going to meditate. We're going to do yoga. We're going to speak about ancestral veneration. We're going to talk about breath work and chakras and food and herbal medicine and all of these things because whether it has been from my own experience or because I've been doing this work for so long, what I know is that we are doing a disservice when we stay in the mental body, right? When we are always approaching healing from this like feedback loop of what your mind is telling you while ignoring what your body is telling you or what your soul is asking for. And their grounding balance. I don't believe that we all ever heal from grief, but we certainly learn how to walk with it and manage it. In order to do all of that, you have to be like a whole person. And so your healing has to be holistic. And so I don't find that I have to convince anyone. I do find that people are like, oh, in working with her, this is what you're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people trust me because I've walked this path, right? I've buried both of my parents. I've also experienced multiple miscarriage. I understand loss and grief and death. And I am only going to ask you to apply what I know has worked. I also think that, some of us, how do I phrase this? I firmly believe, and I'm not somebody that like looks for the silver lining and things. I think that can be a really shitty thing to do to people who are in pain, right? So I don't do it for myself either.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am clear that this is why I have incarnated on this planet and clear that this is why I went through what I did and why I have chosen to reach back for people who come after me. And so I think that in that, there's a lot of trust between me and those I work with.
Yeah.
Right. And that they understand my perspective. What I train people to do at a Healing Doula Academy, and what I work with my own clients to do is I try to equip people with as many tools as possible and then allow them to pick what resonates best with them. I also feel like grief is wrapped into a lot more things than we think it is, right? Like we can think about the acute side of grief, of losing someone personally, the physical loss. There's also the grief that comes with what we're witnessing right now as a collective, right? The world is going through a lot. There's a lot of grief at play here. Grief can shift and one grief can trigger another grief. And you can have something called compounded or stacked grief, which is when you're dealing with multiple losses at a time. So for me to give you one thing, one person, one technique would probably not serve you. And so my goal is always to offer you all of the things that I know that can help, and then teach you how to tune into yourself so that you can begin to recognize what should be applied when, right? So an example of that is, as a griever, you might have like really high anxiety sometimes, right? Which we all do at times. Certain breath practices are not good for anxiety. They will actually make you more anxious. Right? There are certain sound healing frequencies that are best depending on your mood. There are certain foods that are best. There are certain herbs that should be applied at different times. And so part of my work is getting you to tune deeper into you so that you can become more aware of what you need. And then I have given you the tools, and you can feel much more in control by saying, oh, I know I have this technique in my pocket. And Sundari has taught me that when I am feeling untethered or angry or frustrated, that this is the best modality. And with practice, eventually it becomes automatic in the body, right? And that's also, I expect people who work with me to take as much responsibility for their healing as I do. Right? I can't heal you. I can just return you back to yourself. And so you have to be as invested as I am, which means with practice, you will begin to understand what you need and when you need it. And I think when people are able to treat themselves, right, to manage themselves, there is nothing more empowering than that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the spiritual path allows that, whereas the Western view of healing keeps you in a bit of a feedback of always feeling like there is someone that is necessary outside of.
Yeah, all of my work goes back to basically, and I'm going to post something about this soon, about a line in my book says, be your own savior. Like, allow people and higher power, God, whatever you believe in, partners to complement you, to add to that. But you can only save yourself, so to speak. And at the end of the day, all we have is ourselves and something greater, if you believe in that, right? So to feel, how do we feel safe to move about the world, to go into these griefy spaces or into the joy, right? Because joy could be just as scary for people as grief can be, right? How do we go into that feeling safe if we're relying on somebody else who may not be there tomorrow, right? So I love that you do that. I love that you focus on empowering people, giving them the tools to what resonates when, right? For this, I know I need to do this. Soon as you taught me how to do this, and now I can do this technique or drink this tincture or whatever it is. I just love that you trust in their inner wisdom, right? I think sometimes we don't give people that enough credit, if you will, or just belief and faith that like everybody has their own essence, their own inner wisdom that's going to come up, and they're going to be like, oh, but sometimes we need other people to teach us. Oh my gosh, yes, I heard that, or I read that, or that's why we all contribute and do what we do, because we don't know what to say, how it's going to resonate with somebody and stick. You hear some things and they just stick, and then they come up at the right time, and that's spirit doing it.
It is. It's divine intervention. It's divine guidance. I believe that when you're ready, the teacher appears. I believe that when you're ready, the teacher disappears. Yeah. I believe that when you're on a healing journey, the most detrimental thing you can do is put people on a pedestal. Put someone on a pedestal to be the person that comes to rescue you. Like, your entire mission when you're going through trauma, pain, loss, grief should be to get to know yourself, because you are going to have to rock with yourself for the rest of this journey. It is only going to be you and you. And that can be, I found, especially in the beginning, when you're dealing with pain, like grief brings, loss, trauma, it is extremely terrifying to believe that you are your answer. That the answer is going to come through you, that you are going to be your best guide, right? We all want somebody to come in and fix this. And I always just remind people, give yourself grace. You will trust yourself with time. You will trust yourself with practice. It takes practice to believe in yourself. We've been trained since birth to give authority outside of ourselves. And so part of this path is really having to unlearn everything that you have learned about how capable you are and about how powerful you are and about the gifts of healing that lay within you. Like you are literally, you just need somebody to come and remind you.
Yes.
But you have it. And I know that that is scary, but it is also the thing that will make all of this human experience much more enjoyable
Yes.
than what some of us wind up in.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps you feel safe, stable, secure to face anything, right? Like, and going through that darkness, like you got to be in that darkness. I personally believe that the greatest healing and awakening and enlightenment comes from being in that darkness and that pain. So trusting that you're going to come out the other side at some point, and that's why we do have support and community. We do need people sometimes, but they're not the end all be all.
It's so funny. Like I was just having this conversation with a friend, and so much of the verbiage that's been taught to us leads us astray in more ways than we think. And we always think it's like, go to the light, follow the lights. And it's like, we don't realize like that programming makes you think that the light is what births things. And it's the exact opposite. It's what you said. Darkness is what births anything. Everything is birthed from the void. Everything comes from darkness. And you are going to have to sit in your darkness in order to find your light. That is it. There is no bypassing that. And so much of what we have been led to believe is like there's some ability to bypass it, or there's like this light that comes. That's just not how it works. And when we can get real about that, the rest of it becomes a bit easier. Like, oh no, this is just going to suck.
Yeah.
It's just going to be terrible. It's going to be dark and heavy. And I have to learn how to manage this to get to the other side.
And I think we've also been taught that that light is somewhere, or that feeling of safety or something is outside of us, right? Like instead of it's all already in us. We already came into this world, like you're saying, with everything that we need. Everything. I mean, and everything around us, the earth, I mean, everything is provided for us. We really don't need to be manufacturing all this stuff that we think is going to make us feel better, or that's a different conversation. But like, I want to talk about how we move from that mental, like you said, a lot of it is a mental processes to energetic. How do we feel this? And I know, and you use the word ancestral venerations. So how are these, what gifts have our ancestors left us that are still here, that are tried and true and will never change in order to move from the mental to the energetic?
I think one of the reasons that I even started a Healing Doula Academy was because of how beneficial I know ancestral veneration is. And often you will, something that I hear from people sometimes when they're new to it is there's always the feeling of, I didn't know my ancestors. Not everyone does. Not everyone liked their ancestors, right? And so sometimes that is the first block that goes up. And the first thing that I try to like break through is if you look at the math of how many ancestors you can possibly have, it does not matter that you did not know or like this most recent bunch. You go back thousands and thousands and thousands, right? It does not matter if the most recent bunch is the most dysfunctional group of derelicts that you've ever met. It doesn't matter. At some point, there were beings there that were quite kind and lovely. And right, it doesn't matter how much pain is currently present. Some point there was joy. It doesn't matter how much weakness is currently here. At some point, there is incredible amounts of strength. When we think about like, well, I'm not somebody who I can imagine like healing myself, or I don't think of myself in this like woo-woo medicine kind of person way. It's like, yeah, but Western medicine, what you think of as what is most helpful is actually quite new. And what you think of as new age is actually super, super old. And those ancient techniques, those modalities worked. They worked. Yeah. And they lie in your bloodline. And something that I learned, I remember in prenatal yoga when I took a teacher training, was that you have been carried by the women who came before you, right? So meaning your cells were carried by your grandmother. That's just how cells work, right? So every mother that came before you carried the DNA of at least 2 generations that came after, which means you have been a part of everything that came before you in your bloodline. Pain and trauma, yes, but healing and wisdom
Yes.
and incredible magic also lays in there. And its cells have memory. This is scientifically proven, so you don't have to be woo-woo. You can just go from the biological standpoint. Your cell holds memory. So if the cell holds memory, then that literally means ancient healing techniques, ancient healing practices are just waiting inside, right? That's the first thing to understand.
Mm-hmm.
The second is that we have to realize that our thoughts, you have to start looking at your brain as like another person in your head. And it's this thing that just keeps talking at you. We have been led to believe that we should believe everything our brain says. We should believe every feeling and emotion that we have. And that's simply not true. You are like a computer with multiple programs running, and the brain will keep doing this. It's just like a monkey chatter. It just keeps running. You have to become the conscious decider, discerner of what you will listen to and what you will not, what you will accept and what you will not. And that can also be a hard second step for people, right? We think that everything we're thinking is real and factual and true. And so that's the course I must take.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's actually not. You have to start thinking about, I'm running multiple programs and not every program deserves my attention. When you move past that, then you have to think of, okay, well, if my brain is just running this constant program and my body holds memory, then wouldn't it do me service to pay as much attention to my body as I'm paying to my brain? How often are we sitting and saying, what am I feeling inside of my body right now? Where is my grief in my body? And I ask that question because not everyone holds it in the same place. You know, from Chinese medicine perspectives, you hold it in your small intestine and your lungs. But lots of us hold it in our guts, in our hips, in the back of the neck, right? Have you ever sat and really sat with yourself? And so when I think about my loss, when I think about my grief, where does that show up? What bubbles up to the surface when I think about my loss? And then what happens from there is that most people feel the feeling and then just keep going and expects that, I thought about it, or, that'll just get put away. The cell holds memory. Your body holds memory. It doesn't disappear. So what feelings come up when you don't address them and look at them as something that I not only need to witness, but I need to sit with, that energy stays stagnant within the body. This is when we start talking about like, how do you shift energy? You have to start becoming like a proactive participant in, I know that I have energy sitting in my body that I need to shift and release so that my brain can stop feeding me this program that is driving me nuts. And so that my body can have a better chance at healing and moving through whatever is going on inside. What you don't deal with energetically, you will deal with physically.
Yeah.
And so a lot of grievers know this, right? All of a sudden we wind up with like gut issues, autoimmune issues. All of a sudden you're having reproductive problems, your hair is falling out, your digestion's off. All of this happened when you don't sit with what's happening energetically, because your body is not betraying you, it's protecting you by now shifting all of that emotional energy into physical symptoms. So you have to, it's not even like a, maybe I don't have to do this. Like, no, you actually do. Grief is an extremely strong emotion that has a domino effect of other strong emotions. When you are not actively, whether you want to or not, saying that you have to move it and then move it out, this will become a domino effect of your health. When you can get quiet enough to hear your body and to quiet your mind, your soul has a chance to express itself in the way that it wants to. And that's what we are here for. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Your soul is here to express itself in a certain way. It cannot do that if it is bound by old, outdated energetic beliefs or old, outdated trauma your grief will never go away, but you can walk with it better so that it is not preventing you from expressing yourself the way that you should.
So it feels to me like what you just said, it's not going to go away. So it just sort of transmutes, right?
Transmuting, it's alchemy. Grief, moving through grief is alchemization at the highest level.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what does it alchemize into?
I think you have a lot of opportunities with grief. And I know that word can feel triggering because it's like, who the fuck wanted this opportunity? Like, I get that. I completely understand that. However, I always look at it like in my book, Grief Gems, where I write about this. Grief shrinks your emotional bandwidth, meaning that it usually makes you much less tolerant of other people's bullshit, of situations that don't work for you anymore, of places that don't feel good, of everything from the micro to the macro, like from a hairstyle that's like, oh, this just isn't working for me anymore, right? Like grief offers you an opportunity to focus so much on yourself that you can live within the emotional bandwidth that you have and then whittle out all of the extra noise. When you can look at that as like, you do not have to hang on to the people that are not supporting you in your grief. You do not have to hang on to the job where you feel like is draining the life force out of you, right? Grief is offering you a chance to look at what's working and what's not. And the only things that should stay are things that allow you to feel quiet, safe, peaceful, joyful, held, respected, kind, right? What should happen in your grief is anything outside of that should get so loud that you have to pay attention to it and you have to say no more.
Yes.
Because of that, if you are actually following those breadcrumbs of like, oh, no, this feels yucky. Oh, no, she's actually a real asshole. Oh, no, he's as terrible as I remember. If you actually start paying attention to all of that, you are left with not your person. And I get that. That is still hard and terrible. But you are left with a life where you feel much more seen, heard, and validated. You are left with a sense of bravery because you've said no and walked away from a lot of things. And it allows so much more space for you to fill with all of the things that make you feel better in the life that you're leading now. I think grief, like, the alchemization comes when you recognize you're no longer this version of yourself. There is no going back to her, to him, to them.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes. It's done.
Yeah.
And so it's, how do I forge a new life from the version that is here right now? How do I become an alchemist throughout my entire life? Because I now know I'm going to keep shifting in my grief. My grief is going to keep changing. And so how do I become more fluid in what I say yes to and no to, so that I am always designing a life that is holding? Right? Like these are choice points that grief gives you. Now, you can choose to stay exactly where you are. I will guess that you will come up against a lot of resistance there because those people no longer match your frequency. Your job might not match your frequency. Your community might not match your frequency. You are going to have to sit with yourself and figure out who you are now, and then say yes to what matches and no to what doesn't. And to me, when you can look back and say, I took what was so painful and hard and confusing, and it's not that you will land in some perfect place, but you will find yourself at least walking on a path that feels more authentic. I find before grief, we are living a lot less authentic life than we are.
For sure.
And it's usually because you're just wrapped up in whatever this matrix is telling you to do. So you're just going about your life and saying yes to whatever your group says, your family says, your programming has told you, school, church, whatever it was. And everything crumbles in grief, right? Friendships change, faith shifts, everything shifts. So you have to rebuild. That's alchemy. Taking what could have wiped you out and building something better is alchemy.
That's
So
I'm starting to get teary. Like that's just so powerful and beautiful. And that's what life is all about, right? It feels to me like that's why we're here to experience what sounds to me like what you're describing is an awakening. This
yes,
that brings you to an enlightenment of your true self, your authenticity,
yes.
who you always were meant to be. It's just such a, I really hope people listen to this.
Grief of someone else, to me, grieving someone else, the death of someone else is a death of a version of yourself.
For sure.
And
Yes.
you are absolutely being given an opportunity to create whatever you want. And I cry when I think about it, but this was not presented to you for no reason.
Yeah.
This
No.
wasn't.
No.
And it's not that I don't believe that everyone has to become a grief and death doula, right? You don't need to. You can just quit your job, dump that shitty boyfriend, leave your awful marriage, figure out what feels good. But to carry this and then to stay in any situation that doesn't feel good and think that you will somehow find healing in that place, it will never work.
Yeah, and I fully believe that spirit does that for us. I don't think that it's coincidental that my brother died and 5 months later I had this whole crazy epiphany about my marriage and how unacceptable it had become, and then I sought this whole healing journey of breaking cycles, generational family dysfunction.
Yes.
I believe went back centuries and centuries. Like there's no coincidence that I was moved and compelled. It was like I was forced. Like I couldn't say no to this thing that just like eyes wide open. It's almost just like reality, like just like smacked me in the face. And like, and I remember the exact moment it happened, and it was just like, but it didn't seem like that on the outset. It's like it was just a lot of anxiety, right? There was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of what am I feeling? I don't even know who this person is or why I'm thinking this or why I'm feeling this. It felt like a shift is the word, but like a seismic shift. What am I seeing? What are my awarenesses? Awarenesses that I could not shove back. That maybe I sensed. Before. Maybe I sensed.
Yeah, you probably sensed them before. I feel like we're all kind of aware, like this isn't so great, but we do get along to get along, and we just keep plugging away at life. And then you experience loss, and you're like, everything freezes. And so now, exactly what you said, you just start to look around, like you always knew it beforehand that maybe that you were stuck in a place that didn't feel so good, but that like the grief just makes it that you can't unsee it. There's no unseeing it anymore.
Yeah. And I think we spend a lot of time alone, right? While we're in that acute grief phase, especially like you said. How did you describe your experience right after?
I laid on a couch, drinking wine and watching the Food Network for like.
You were by yourself. I assume.
Yeah.
Maybe we have our family, our immediate family around, the partner, kids, whatever. But like, it's a very lonely, or maybe not lonely, maybe solitude. And it can feel lonely at times, but you're in this solitude, this space of you get the chance to quiet down. Whereas when we're running and gunning and we're going to work and we're doing this, we're distracted. We're not focused, and that's again, another conversation that we're supposed to be distracted from all of this, right? Because we might become too powerful and all that jazz. But like that grief gives you the gift of being able to, quiet down, settle down, have that time. And then that's when you start awakening to this, well, what was that? And then it just can't go away. Doesn't go away.
When you are first a griever, you feel like a victim. And that's a natural feeling. It's like, why has this happened to me? Like why of all the people, why is this happening to me? Why am I here? Why did this happen to this person? And I think that's all valid. Like, I think that's part of the healing process is also being like, I feel like a victim. But I think
part of go through it all. You have to go through all of it.
But I think one of the things grief can show you is how much more control you have than you think you do over your own experience and life moving forward.
Definitely. 100%. So some of these modalities that you may use, so you do yoga, breath work, meditation.
So
Can you tell us what that looks like?
in a Healing Doula Academy, what I train folks to do is one, to learn about all of these ancient modalities. And so it's yoga, but it's also Tai Chi, right? It's also acupuncture and acupressure points. It's also about dance. And, it's all about, so I call it sacred movement. Somatic movement was something that was started in like the 70s. Sacred movement's been around since the beginning of time. And this is when you're thinking about moving the body energetically. And so when we think about, as an example, yoga for grief, we focus on like your hips, right? Because you have chakras that run throughout the body. Your root chakra sits between your hips. Your root chakra is what dictates how stable and secure you feel in your life. And so doing something like lots of hip openers and concentrating on using the mantra for the root chakra and the sacred sound that goes along with it allows you to bring balance to the chakra energy, right? So that not just your root chakra becomes balanced, but the rest become balanced as well. When we think about sound, it's because there's something called solfeggio frequencies. Solfeggio frequencies are set to specific healing frequencies. At a certain point in our history, and I'll let people go down this rabbit hole themselves, the frequency of music was changed. And it was changed to induce anxiety and frustration. This was done with the propaganda of Germany after a certain war. This is put into society by the Rockefeller Foundation. All mainstream music has had their frequency changed to incite anxiety and frustration.
Oh my God. I had no idea.
So in knowing that, I'm not telling people to turn off the radio, but what you can do is to add in frequencies that have been set to heal you, right? So there are frequencies that are set to bring in feelings of calmness, frequencies that are set to do cellular repair. So I train people to start paying attention to these, to really listen to these, to add them into the other music that you're listening to bring balance. But song can also be singing, right? Activating your throat chakra. In activating your throat chakra, you begin to become more comfortable in asking for what you want in life, in saying no to what you want to say no to, right? But in doing that, you have to open up that energetic space. And so we do so through sound, through song, through ancient chanting. When it comes to meditation and breath work, it's the same thing. Most of us don't breathe correctly. We're all chest breathers. Very few of us are belly breathers or even come below the diaphragm. A chest breath is an anxiety-inducing breath. In order to breathe deeper, you have to start utilizing other breathing practices. But your diaphragm is like a muscle, so you have to train it to do so. And so the breathing practices are brought in. There are about 12 that I teach, and they're all going to meet you at where you're in your grief, because not every breath is made for a certain one. We go a lot into plant medicine. Plants deal with your energetic body. So yes, they all have physical benefits as well, but they all come with energetic benefits. And so there are certain plants that have been designed to deal with sadness and to deal with anger and to deal with healing certain parts of the body that specifically is where your grief is sitting. We also go a lot into ritual and tradition. Ritual is how you bridge a gap between what you want and what you have. And so if we are looking for things like, I need to feel more confident and more connected to my ancestry, more grounded in my loss, ritual is what gets you there. Every day at these times, I sit down at my ancestral altar and I do these specific things to connect to myself and my lineage and my bloodline, and to ask my soul how she wants to be expressed now. So there's a lot of different ways that we weave in healing. There's so many different practices. I speak a lot about dance. Dance is a part of every culture. And sometimes we think we have to be like standing on our heads in some yoga pose. It's like, no, you can actually move your hips,
Yeah.
move that root chakra, touch your toes, shake the energy out of your body.
I do retreats, and the last one we had was a full day retreat. And it was the first time that I've done ecstatic dance. So I don't know if you do that as well. And we're having
Yeah.
another retreat coming up where the same facilitator, she's going to come in and do that, and a cacao ceremony with it. So I'm really excited to learn another ritual, right? Like all this stuff.
Yes, another ritual.
It's
You
always been there. And now I'm so excited to be alive during a time where
This is such a beautiful time. And I really want people to understand, like, it feels like we're witnessing collapse because we are watching something collapse, but it is a return.
yes.
What is collapsing is inorganic. What is collapsing is not helpful. What is collapsing was never meant to support us.
Yep.
And what we should be doing at this time, if you have incarnated at this time, you are luckier than you think.
Yep.
And this is an opportunity to really look at what were ancient cultures doing and to start doing them. To stop thinking that things are new age and woo-woo. Who told you that? This is what your great-great-grandparents did. This is what every culture has done, and it worked. Stop healing in isolation. Sit in community. Stop thinking that ceremonies are for some like random witch in Salem, Massachusetts. It is not. It is for you. Stop thinking talking to your ancestors is demonic. That's weird. She was like your great aunt. Talk to her. Doesn't matter if you knew her or not. All of these things have been around for so long because they are so effective. And you have been taught to distrust yourself and to distrust your own ancestry, to distrust your own power, to doubt yourself. Let all of that collapse with everything else that is collapsing right now. Let it all go.
Very first episode I ever did on this show, we called it Light 'em Up. And what it is about is it's about that we need to collapse in order to rebuild or return, right? I mean, that just depends. Well, semantics. It's all how you look at it, but it's just a reset back to the base of what always worked. That all through the money and the power and the structure, the government. It's the whole corporate America. I mean, it's like everything all over the world, and I'm sure. So I didn't tell you guys, but Sundari is coming to us from Germany. So super quick because we're running out of time here. But can you speak are you seeing similar systems? And you've lived in a lot of places. Do you see similar systems going on around the world that are happening in America?
I think we're watching on a global level is empirical collapse. I think, America, and I say this as an American, you kind of feel like you are in a bubble when you're there and this is the loudest thing that's happening in the world. It's actually not. What's happening in America is what's happening across soil all over the place. Everyone is waking up at the exact same time. This is the age of Aquarius. This is the time that has been prophesized since the beginning of time. So humans are waking up everywhere. Everyone is fighting back against bullshit systems. And so, you are not alone in that. Everyone is looking around like, who said this made sense? It does not. We should no longer be continuing. And all of these idiots who have been making money off of our labor and backs, they all need to fall. And this, like grief, is going to require a surrender. There is a walk into the unknown. I don't know what this looks like on the other side, but I know that I don't want to continue doing the same things that I have been doing, right? You do not want these systems to continue. They do not work for us. Let them fall. You do not want to be the same person that has been holding on to these systems. That was not serving you. It doesn't matter if you're like, well, nothing's going wrong in my life. Great for you. But imagine how much more amazing it could be if you disconnected from people who are literally trying to make you struggle. Imagine how much better it could be.
I love the correlation you just made. You just made a very important point, a correlation to grief.
Surrender to this.
You don't know who you're going to become once you let the old you die in order to be reborn. I know some people don't like that word reborn, sounds religious, whatever, but just to be rebirthed or brought back to your original, who you always have been, who we always have been as a society. That's why, and that's what I always talk about, healing our energy helps heal the collective, because we are parallel what's going on in here and us feeling like it's not okay anymore. This relationship isn't okay, or whatever it is, this job, like you were saying, that's just not me, the clothes I'm wearing, whatever it is, feeling moved and compelled to make those changes, to let that old person die, is the same thing that's happening in society. There's no separation. You're all one.
As above, so below. What happens on the macro happens on the micro. As that is falling, I urge everyone who is listening, just like birth, grief, and death, this is a choice point. Choose who you want to be on the other side of this. Choose what you want life to look like. Choose what you are willing to accept as fact and what you are choosing to become more discerning about. But your biggest takeaway should be that you have so much more power than you think. For sure. That you are so much more capable than you think. And that everything that you need to help you, heal you, and assist you, you already have. And you just need to let the rest of it go. That's it.
Sundari, you are a force. You are a blessing. I am so glad that, I don't know if you believe in reincarnation. I believe.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I thought so. I'm happy. I'm grateful that you chose to reincarnate now. I believe the people that are stepping into these spaces that we're in all different ways, not just in grief, right? I mean, you brought to this point through many different avenues.
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful for all of our souls that have chosen to do this. Not easy, but necessary.
We came back for a reason, and it was not to stand here and let these morons tell us to be scared. That's not why we're there.
That's right. All right, Sundari, awesome. Tell everybody where they can find you, follow you, where they can get your book, about your healing academy, all your good stuff.
Yes, so you can head to healingdoula.com. That will kind of send you to everywhere, but healingdoula.com will tell you how to work with me individually, as a family, or as an organization. It is where you will find a Healing Doula Academy and our full curriculum. It's where you will see my next 2 upcoming workshops. Grief Gems can be purchased on Amazon. Sundari Bliss is my Instagram. And you can email me anytime at info@ahealingdoula.com, and I would be happy to touch base and just connect with you.
So a Healing Doula Academy, is that where you teach people to do the work you're doing to help others?
The Healing Doula Academy is where I train people to be spiritually led grief and death doulas. And it's all by applying ancient spiritual healing modalities. It is a self-paced virtual program, so you can start whenever you are ready. It has an incredible collection of guest teachers, incredible workshops. I always say, if I had not created this curriculum, this training, I would be taking it. For anyone that is interested in learning about ritual, ceremony, about everything from the Aztecs to the Olmecs, Hoodoo, Obeah, the Celtics, it is all in their Native American traditions. It is beautiful, West African, but it is for all of us. And it is all the traditions that have come across the world that we can use to better help ourselves and our communities. And at the end, you graduate a student of the academy, and you're able to go out into this world and do what I do. And the training heavily teaches you also how to lean into the business side of this, how to market yourself, how to position yourself out on this path. So head to a Healing Doula Academy and check out the curriculum, see what it's about, see the guest teachers, sign up when you're ready. I offer monthly free Q&As. You can come and chat with me and ask any individual questions that you have. But I've tried to make it as clear as possible on the site. Join us. It is really an incredible community of students.
I love
start doing retreats for this in 2026. So.
Awesome. I love it. I'm going to check it out. I've been looking. I'm searching for like a mentor, coach, sort of the next step. I'm always looking for the next thing, and I want to be a death doula at some point. So I'm going.
Please come join. I really love it. Just how I'm speaking to you here is how it's laid out, but it is extremely informative. And I've had people tell me it is an oasis. It is like a collection of just absolutely beautiful information that you would usually have to source from a million different places. And so I'm really proud of it. And
you're awesome, and you're so real, and just
thank you.
A breath of fresh air. And thank you so much for being on our show today. And I
Thank
I
you.
am keeping in touch with you because I don't find people that often that I feel not speak my language. I mean, it's our language, but it's like,
Same frequency.
same wave, same wave.
Yeah. I
All right.
get
Well,
you.
thank you.
I
Thank
get
you
you.
so much. And I will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.